What happened to Traxion? Well, we're about to find out. But first, a quick team overview. I'm Tom, Editor-in-Chief of the Traxion website.
I'm Ross, I'm Features Editor.
And since you're watching this on YouTube, you probably already know that I am John and I am the content creator for TraxionGG.
I am also a YouTube person and I'm the video editor for the majority of the videos on the YouTube channel.
And I am Boring and the non-creative here. I'm CEO of Traxion and Gridfinder.
So, some familiar faces, some new faces, and together this is the new Traxion. And before we go on, I must say we're indebted to people who also used to work in Traxion, but are no longer in this new version. They're in our hearts, and they found new paths in their career, and we're excited to deal with them as well because they're still within sim racing. Now, that links in to what happened in the past. So, as you may be aware, that Traxion was alive, and then all of a sudden, in about November last year, it wasn't.
Dum dum dum.
Yeah, it was about as dramatic and sudden as that, wasn't it? Well, I say that. Everyone who's followed the Traxion story knows that we were set up by Motorsport Games, and there was always some rumblings about the financial issues the last few years in particular. And then, we were kind of aware, weren't we, as a group, that, based on the financial reports, things were a little bit uncertain. And then when it came to early November last year, I think we all learned on pretty much the same day that the whole Traxion team was being made redundant, along with other people, I should say, in the company as well. I think it was a mass redundancy. So it was a pretty brutal day.
I posted on Twitter soon after we were all made redundant, and the reaction was amazing from the community. There were so many positive comments, and people we hadn't heard from before, who we didn't know were readers or viewers. They were coming out and saying that Traxion was, a good thing for sim racing. So it kind of made us all feel a little bit better in the obviously bad circumstances at the time.
Yeah, I think, like John mentioned there, that we weren't the only people affected by motorsport games, and I suppose, a sim racing media outlet on YouTube and social and website isn't the most important thing in the world. However, it was really satisfying in some respects, even though it was a bittersweet time to see that how much we meant to people. And that's just from our point of view internally. There was also opportunities, though, that came back that externally, right, from people looking outside in.
Well, yeah, I guess that leads to me, right? I was a huge fan of Traxion. I mean, obviously, still am, guys. Still a big fan.
That's good.
I was glad.
Thanks.
But yeah, I was a huge fan of Traxion. I was one of the many tens of hundreds of bazillions and jillions of thousands of viewers and watchers that you guys had that would turn to Traxion for sim racing news. Like it was a nice community. It had a really good feel to it. Like you guys were all really well liked. Like you kind of were the brand. The brand wasn't like this big kind of corporate scary thing. It was just like, well, here's a lot of sim racers that are loving talking about sim racing and making videos of sim racing, and that came across, I think, to everyone else. So I think I shared in that reaction, that initial reaction that everyone had was, oh god, Traxion's gone. That's a bit of a shame. It was a sad day, right? And I guess bittersweet, as you say, Tom, to be on your side of the table and see that. It's like, oh, that's nice, but I do now have to go and find a job, which is what you guys all did, right? You went off and found some really cool jobs, but fate has brought us back together.
Yeah, so Traxion itself, just to be clear, is no longer part of Motorsport Games, although we believe there might be a strategic partnership there for the Le Mans Virtual Series, but the Motorsport Games does not own Traxion in any way. It's now a new company to us, anyway, in the form of Rafa Racing.
Yeah, so I guess this story it is long and complicated, and at some points boring. Legal processes are very dull, but in other parts incredibly exciting. And I think my initial reaction when I saw the announcement, and I think if I remember right, it was Ross's tweet, the infamous Ross's tweet, his
Ross's most popular ever tweet, you were saying.
Yeah.
It might have been called Twitter back then, but it's not now.
Good point. Yeah, show me age. So I saw that, and like a lot of people saying, oh, that's sad. And I was like, maybe there's something we can do about it. So at the same, and this is all very kind of concurrent, and I'm writing a very dull story on my LinkedIn at the moment about this, but essentially, as Gridfinder was being bought by Rafa Racing Club, and I'll come on to what Rafa Racing Club is in a moment, the opportunity for Traxion to be revived somehow also presented itself. So less than 48 hours after the Ross tweet, I was on the phone with Stephen Hood to work out what his plans were for Traxion. Was it going to be totally dormant? Was it going to be brought back later? Was it going to be repurposed into something else? And, I can't go into too many of the details, but there were a lot of plans that were all being considered. There was like 4 or 5 different options for Traxion. So I went back to Rafa Racing Club, and a guy called Tony Calderon, one of the coolest guys in racing, by the way. Shout out to Tony. The guy's won Le Mans. Very cool. Who I worked directly with at Rafa Racing Club, and was like, Tony, we need to talk about Traxion. That should be the name of this podcast. We need to talk about Traxion. And anyway, long story short, told him what Traxion was, told him about the sentiment that the sim racing community had for it, discussed how it might sit beautifully alongside Gridfinder, how Gridfinder is this technology platform that can host racing, and Traxion is the best at telling those stories. And perhaps we can bring the two together. Perhaps we can revive the Traxion brand. And obviously the complication was that Gridfinder at that point was being bought, but so it was a bit of a risky strategy because our fate wasn't sure yet. But I pushed on, and through the winter months and then into January, February, Gridfinder we sold in December, and then early this year, I think it was January, that we actually did the deal on Traxion. Kept it very quiet, but the big thing for us was that we had to have you guys. Like, Traxion is nothing without you guys. So it was never going to work. And, fortunately, we've managed to revive the brand and bring back, as you say, most of the team with a few additions.
Yeah, it's been great to get to know over the past couple of weeks the new additions. Obviously, the people speaking on the team here, it's a slightly smaller video team, a slightly smaller editorial team. But we do have extra support around that, which is why I think that's extremely exciting for the followers of Traxion.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to deliver just as much, if not more, but with the as you say, the slightly kind of compressed editorial team. And we're doing that by combining the cores of Gridfinder and Traxion together. So Gridfinder has a marketing and events team, and now Traxion is basically going to be tapping into that same marketing and events team. So Matt, who's the creative director of Gridfinder, who designs all of our social media posts, and he does all of our UI, UX, all of the dashboards that you see in the Gridfinder League Manager, for example, or the front page or the communities. Matt does that, and he's fantastic at it. He's now going to be lending his hand to the Traxion brand. We've also got Liam, who's our marketing manager at Gridfinder, who's now going to be helping to market Traxion. Same Mick, our social media manager, is now going to be doing Traxion and Gridfinder. And then we've also got Dan Terry, formerly of SGP. So any SGP fans who have been in the SGP Discord will have definitely spoken to the legend that is Dan Terry. He's now going to be working across Gridfinder and Traxion on activations and things we might want to do with the Traxion community and Gridfinder. And then Charlie Spence, who's our community manager, who's just a big fan of sim racing. I think he's just happy to be here, to be honest. He just tends to join some of the calls occasionally. I'm kidding. Charlie's great. So we've got this core team that's going to be servicing both entities. And very excitingly, Chris Honeyball, who was a co-founder at Gridfinder, the first person to join me on the Gridfinder journey over 3 years ago now, he is now fully dedicated to Traxion. So he is Traxion's CTO, which means we can build Traxion into more than just a news blog. And it's not just a news blog, obviously it's so much more than a news blog. It's in our hearts. It's a way of life. Traxion's a way of life, right? But he's going to be building out the technology side of Traxion GG. So there's going to be a lot of things that we can do. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot that we can do with Traxion to make it more valuable to the sim racer, to provide more function to the sim racer. We're excited to bring Chris into the fold, and then finally Emily, who used to freelance for Traxion, doing a lot of the social media graphic design stuff, and she's been recently doing a very great job at SRO doing the same thing. She's now back on board as well. So we've managed to bring back a lot of the core team, but those who we haven't managed to bring back, we're kind of trying to complement that lack of resource with the combined arms of Gridfinder and Traxion.
I think it's cool because in recent times when we've obviously had discussions about this, and I think we're all on the same wavelength, right? We all love sim racing and racing games a huge amount, and I think there's a lot of things that Gridfinder stands for, that Traxion has always stood for as well. That, the difference being, of course, like the situation with motorsport games is well documented. A lot of people, there's controversy around that. There's, all of these things. But at the end of the day, even though we all got made redundant and the site and the channel were essentially dormant, we all also were given the opportunity in the first place, and we did a lot of great stuff with them, and we always were able to kind of do what we needed to do. We were editorially independent, so it was great in the first place. But then also now with new ownership, everyone's facing the same direction. We don't have any of those kind of conflict of interest in the same way that we had to work with and around whilst we were in our first phase. Sorry, I've just smacked my microphone. So that's really exciting, I think, as well. And just talking to you guys, talking to Rafa about the sort of things we can be doing, I think there's just so much potential. Our brainstorming sessions have been far too long, and we still feel like we've got hours and hours of chat still to go. So I think everyone's just pumped. Yeah,
because I think a key thing is that Gridfinder and Rafa Racing, alongside Traxion, have similar values and ethos, which is we're trying to get more people into the space, right? So Rafa Racing Club is going to be building these physical locations where people who are looking to get into racing weren't serviced in the right way. Or so, you can rent supercars or get advice or training, and it's all in one place. Gridfinder doesn't look down upon people playing on consoles or older equipment in the same way that Traxion will cover the pinnacle of sim racing, esports, or the iRacing Indy 500, but we will also cover Need for Speed and Test Drive Unlimited, which we're very excited about, because we see that as a way of getting people into the space and therefore making sim racing a sustainable place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been in and around Rafa Racing Club now for over a year. Actually, 18 months. It's gone really fast. And in various guises, they were kind of a little bit involved. Now they're very much a lot involved. They own us. It's about as involved as you can possibly get. And there's a whole podcast to be done on the kind of like the emotional journey of selling a company when it starts out as a passion project like this one has. But you have to be very careful if you sell a company, right? It's a marriage that will last forever. Dog is not just for Christmas. An acquisition is forever, right? So we had to be really sure of this partner. And what I can say is that you will not find a more passionate, engaged, and open and friendly group of sim racing and motorsport fans than in Rafa Racing Club. Like, everyone there is absolutely motorsport obsessed, and that starts at the very top. So Rafael Martinez, the founder of Rafa Racing Club, his story could be a whole podcast, because his story is incredible. How he came from El Salvador with next to nothing, and then made a huge success of his career, and is now kind of funding this vision for making motorsport accessible. And he races himself. He races an SRO GT4, and he races in the Porsche Motorsport Sprint Challenge North America. It's punchy. It's a punchy name for that series. Anyway, he races in that. He's obsessed with racing. He absolutely loves it, and he sim races all the time because he's practicing for those series. And like you say, Tom, he had this vision for how do you make motorsport more accessible. When he turned up to a racetrack, there's a really funny story about he turned up, like, he bought a trailer and put his car in the back, and he got to the track and then didn't know how to get the car out of the trailer. And there was just like no support. There was no way that, you have to just study and watch these endless YouTube videos to work out how to do every little thing. And he's like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a club that would help people into real world motorsport? And that's kind of what Gridfinder has been trying to be. Like, how do you get into league racing? How do we help people enjoy racing more? So bringing Traxion into this group is perfect, because now we have Gridfinder, which is a group of people building a platform that's going to make it easier for people to go racing. We have Traxion, which is making content to help people enjoy racing more, so with your guides, your how-tos, your reviews, etc. And it's all owned by a company that is absolutely obsessed with this world that we're in, and is on the very same mission. So Gridfinder and Traxion together, between us, obviously, one doesn't own the other. We sit side by side. We're working collaboratively. Between us, we can create a space online that will help gamers enjoy racing.
And so part of that, I guess, is the content you mentioned there for Traxion, which we don't envisage will change that much, but we are making some subtle tweaks.
Yeah, I mean, we could cover video first, because we're on the YouTube channel, but essentially what the sort of videos you guys expect from Traxion will continue. So we'll still be making reviews, we'll still be doing guides, how-tos, tips and tricks, all of these things, hopefully some entertainment and fun challenges along the way as well. The actual structure itself may be slightly different. It's myself and Osley, it's a slightly smaller team on that front. So we're going to try and make our scheduling consistent, so you guys know when you can expect a Traxion video, on what day, at what time. Hopefully, to start with, at least Thursday evenings, you can expect videos. But of course, we know things are timely in this racing game space, so there will definitely be changes to that. And it's an ever-developing thing, right? We're warming up the engines right now, but hopefully we can build towards things in the future. And just know that if you've enjoyed the content in the past, you should still be able to enjoy and find the same sort of usefulness in the content nowadays as well.
And similarly, editorially, like there's only two of us now, but we will still try and write the same kind of things we did before. But we may just have to have a look at things that maybe didn't hit so well the first time round, at least in the short term. But again, we'll cover everything from professional esports. Actually, myself and John, as recently as 2 years ago, we were racing in SRO esports against like paid professionals. But also we'd play Gran Turismo 7, and like last year I used to play like Gene Rally 2, which is a small indie game. But we covered everything, so we expect to do the same thing again.
Yeah, from my point of view, two games that are really excited for the rest of the year are Test Drive Unlimited, Solar Crown, a big online open world thing set in Hong Kong, right, that's accessible, and Assetto Corsa Evo, right, which is going to be a hardcore simulation. So, or we suspect, anyway. So we'll cover those with both the same passion and enthusiasm and detail as each other.
Well, we got BeamNG career mode as well, finally. Maybe, maybe not.
I mean, you can tell from the way that we're chatting here that when we did the all hands meeting last week, where we had all 15 people from Gridfinder and Traxion, we just spoke and spoke and spoke and spoke for like 2 days solid.
Oops.
Like you could not stop us from talking about sim racing. So I pretty much knew that I was in the right room from the moment I walked into it, and everyone was just chatting about different sim racing news and talking about sim racing podcasts. So Traxion obviously had a very popular podcast, the Traxion GG podcast, and we did it was kind of over at Gridfinder, but a little bit kind of like independent. It wasn't Gridfinder branded, but it was I kind of talked about Gridfinder a lot because that's my identity at this point. But we had a podcast called the Sim Sundays podcast, where we had a different person from the sim racing industry come every single week. So whether that was an esports driver like James Baldwin, or a manufacturer owner like Matt Sten from Track Racer, or Hanu from SimuCube, Thomas Jacomai from Fanatec, and Aris from Kunos. We had all these people, and we would talk about like their journey, like what led you to do what you're doing now. Like, how do you end up working in sim racing and becoming the people that you're becoming? And it was really interesting. But then we had a dilemma, because obviously if between us we have Gridfinder and Traxion, it obviously makes all the sense in the world to put all the content on the Traxion side, because Gridfinder is a technology platform, Traxion is a content platform. So we had to work out what to do with the podcast. So we're still coming up with still doing that, so a bit of the branding exercises and working out what we want it to look like and sound like and all the rest of it. But we will be bringing back the Sim Sundays podcast and the Traxion GG podcast, but as a kind of combined project of sim racing nerdery. And when that happens, who knows? But I can't wait for it.
Yeah, should be good. And we've got a list of guests we'd like on, but it's good. This is not happening in the immediacy, so just bear with us. We are still getting up to speed, and very much focusing on social media, YouTube, and the website content first of all, and then we shall run after we can walk.
I practice in the mirror every morning, though. I don't know about you, Tom. I do a quick one-on-one Sim Sundays podcast while I'm brushing my teeth, right?
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
Okay.
Maybe I should do. Maybe that's where I was going wrong all these years. Yeah.
We've also got the Discord channel as well. So we've always had a Discord channel as our server, I should say. It should get down with the lingo, right? As Traxion. But we never really utilized it fully. Some of you may be aware of it, some of you may not be. But hopefully now we can start to use it a little bit more, and we can maybe reorganize the way that's set up. So all of these things, as we've been clear, are work in progress, but it's worth going and joining that server as well. The URL, I can't actually remember the URL. Tom,
it's traxion.gg/Discord.
There you go. Yeah, so head over there as well, join the server, and as I say, bear with us, but we will be getting up and running and doing some more with it to get you guys involved in things as well. So that's something to look forward to.
And to follow all the latest articles on the website and videos released on YouTube, as soon as they are, we will also share that to our social media feeds. So we're on, let's see if I can remember them all, X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. Suppose you might want to count YouTube community in there. We have got an email newsletter as well.
Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn.
Oh, we have got LinkedIn. That's a very good point.
Very important.
Are we on Bebo?
MySpace.
We are on Bebo. Here's a quick question. TraxionGG's Bebo, who would be our top 8 friends?
Who'd be our other half? It'd be Gridfinder now, wouldn't it? Or is that too...
Well, it better be.
That's a bit corny.
I don't get the reference because I was never.
It'd be sim racing. That would be it.
Okay, we can cover that in a future podcast.
I should say that actually we did get a request to be on Mastodon. We're not there yet. Bear with us. Maybe it's something to consider.
What's Mastodon?
It's another form of Twitter. It's it's open source, I think, something like that. But it
sounds fun.
Private as well. But apparently it's a better version. But I mean, social media is not better anyway.
Let us know in the comments if we should be on Mastodon. Anyway, that's not where we're expected to go. So I think we should say at this point that, yeah, just to reiterate, it's a work in progress, but we're really excited and we're really thankful of all the support that we've seen, not just when we closed down in November last year, but the recent relaunch a week before now was just mind-blowing. It was simply awe-inspiring, and we're here to serve the community.
Yeah, 100%. And also, just while we're on the subject of thanking people for all the support as well, loads of our ex-colleagues as well have been hugely supportive of this too. So everyone we worked with in the past, you guys are incredible, and we look forward to catching up with you all soon. But generally speaking, all of us have been pretty overwhelmed, I think, by just the messages, the posts, the share, all of these things. There's so many people out there rooting for us, despite everything and being away for 6 months. So from all of us, I think we're all the same, right? We all just really, really, really appreciate the support, and hopefully we can give back to you guys some of the excitement and the energy that we've got for this space, because if we can kind of lift it all, bring you more content, more good news, hopefully everyone is happier and sim racing is a better place because of it. So that is our absolute determination.
Yeah, I did want to say, like, obviously the circumstances weren't ideal back then, but the so MSG overall was obviously negative in the public eye. But the fact is that everyone that we worked with back then was just incredible to work with, and like the opportunities that we had when we were working there were just amazing. Like obviously Traxion is one of them. We did activations at Le Mans itself, doing Le Mans Ultimate things, introducing it to the public properly, even doing Le Mans Virtual Series as well, which was absolutely unbelievable. Like the whole two of the times that we did it, it was just like, even though one of them didn't go down very well, it was still an incredible opportunity. And then also some of the guys, I didn't personally manage to get to specific tracks around the UK and do laser scanning for the supporting games as well. And having those opportunities with Motorsport Games was pretty awesome. And that's not a sponsored thing. That is literally myself saying that. Yeah,
the people working there are incredible still now, and yeah, you're right, Ozzy. There's just a difference between the public perception and some of the mistakes they definitely made in the past to the team that is working there now and trying very hard to pull through. So we wish them all the best. Of course, we'll judge Le Mans Ultimate for what it is.
I'd just like to jump in here and just say that as somebody who was for a long time external to Traxion, I think one of the things that we, the fan base of Traxion, saw, most people, not everyone admittedly, but most people would have said Traxion GG does a really good job of being independent, considering it's owned by Motorsport Games that has a portfolio of games themselves. Like, it would almost kind of be less newsworthy if Traxion GG was just writing about Motorsport games, because then you're like, well, of course it is, it's a Motorsport Games entity, but you didn't. You whenever something went awry, you would write about it, and if they were launching something, you would write about it. But equally, you wrote about all the other. You would promote all of their competitors when you were paid by them, and I think that went a long way with the community. I certainly noticed it, that you managed to maintain that kind of like journalistic integrity and that independence, despite the 1 in 100 comments where somebody would be like, "You're owned by Motorsport Games, of course you'd say this," even if you were saying something that was totally negative about Motorsport Games, which was always funny.
We didn't say many positive things, so
well, exactly, right. So
they're probably the least covered games of all, to be honest. Like anything, we did so many things for so many different games, but it was always something that was inevitable with the situation, right?
And I think it's worth saying that wasn't missed by me, and I'm very conscious of the fact that even though Gridfinder is totally independent of any wheel manufacturer, cockpit manufacturer, or game studio, even though we are independent, Traxion is not going to become like an advertising hub for Gridfinder stuff. I mean, even today, today, I guess this is going out on Thursday, but even I guess yesterday or the day before, Tom's putting an article out about a new SGP point system because it's newsworthy and the sim racing, everyone in sim racing should know about it. And so it's being posted about, and that will continue to be the case. It will continue to be independent. And if you guys manage to stay independent and maintain your journalistic integrity whilst you are owned by Motorsport Games, but we can't manage it when you're owned, you're part of the same portfolio as Gridfinder, then we've really done something wrong. So, it's something that we have right at the front of our minds to continue how you guys left off.
Absolutely. And it was a lot of hard work to gain that sort of status within the industry. It took time, but from the very start, we've always been open and honest with everything, and we shall continue that. Speaking of which, if I could just mention, for everybody watching, please let us know in the comments below what you'd like to see from us. So on the website, on social media, future video ideas, we would like your feedback, and that'll be really important. And we're going to do things slightly different. There's going to be initially just maybe 1 or 2 videos a week. We're not trying to do a video every single day. And at the same time, we will be posting every single day on the website, so please follow there, but maybe just not quite as much as we did in the past, but we shall get there.
Yeah, you're not full robots, you're just partial robots. Can't do everything all the time.
No, it'd be really great if an AI could do it for us all, but then it wouldn't have any charm or character or actual knowledge. So hopefully that's many years down the line. Okay, well, I think that just about wraps it up for what we'd like to say in this particular thing. We are a diminutive team, but we really care about racing video games and sim racing and growing the scene and entertaining you. So thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.